The morning sun rose over the ancient Shaolin temple, its golden light touching the worn stone steps where Master Jiho sat in deep meditation. At 75 years old, his body was thin but strong, like a tree that had weathered many storms. His eyes remained closed as he listened to the birds and felt the gentle mountain breeze against his skin. 3 months had passed since Earth surrendered to the Galactic Confederation. 3 months since most nations laid down their advanced weapons, finding them useless against visitors who had mastered travel between stars. 3 months of foreign soldiers walking Earth's streets, their bodies enhanced with technology beyond human understanding. Jiho had lived through many changes in his long life, but none as great as this. Still, each day he followed the same routine he had practiced for 60 years. Meditation at dawn, training until midday, teaching young monks in the afternoon, and reading ancient texts before sleep. The temple had been largely ignored during the invasion. The aliens saw little threat in old buildings and older men who fought without weapons. This was their first mistake. Master Jiho called a young monk named Taiwan, running up the stone steps. Visitors are coming, they look like the sky people. Jiho opened his eyes slowly, his face calm despite the news. How many? 5 soldiers and what looks like their leader, Taiwan answered, his voice shaking slightly. They have their flying machine parked in the valley. Jiho stood up with a fluid motion that belied his age. Prepare tea in the greeting hall. We will meet them as we would any guest. The young monk looked confused. But master, these are the invaders. They have conquered our world. They have conquered countries and armies, Jiho corrected gently. No one can conquer your mind or spirit unless you allow it, remember this. He straightened his simple brown robe. Now, the tea. By the time the soldiers reached the temple gates, everything was ready. Jiho sat on a cushion in the greeting hall, a low table with 6 cups of steaming tea before him. The room was simple, bare wooden floors, walls lined with scrolls showing calligraphy, and open doors that looked out to a small garden. The aliens entered with heavy footsteps. They were humanoid but taller than most humans, with skin that shimmered, slightly under the temple lights. Their leader walked in front, his uniform more decorated than the others. Small lights blinked on devices attached to their temples and wrists. I am Commander Hansu of the Galactic Confederation, the leader announced. His voice had a metallic edge, translated by one of his devices. This facility is now under our authority. Jiho bowed slightly from his seated position. Welcome to our humble temple. I am Jiho, Senior Master here. Please join me for tea before we discuss business. The commander looked surprised, then amused. We are not here for social visits, old man. This region has been designated for a training facility. You have 1 week to evacuate. Jiho took a sip of his tea, his movements unhurried. This temple has stood for over 15 centuries. It has survived wars, earthquakes, and revolutions. I doubt it needs to move for a temporary visitor. One of the soldiers stepped forward, his hand moving to a weapon at his belt. You dare speak to a commander? This way, your entire planet surrendered to us. I speak to all visitors with the same respect, Jiho replied. And I have surrendered nothing. He placed his cup down. May I ask, why do you need this specific mountain? Earth has many places for training. Hansu studied the old monk with growing irritation. Our scans show this area has specific magnetic properties useful for our combat enhancement systems. Besides, your primitive fighting methods have no place in the modern galaxy. This temple's purpose is obsolete. Several young monks standing along the walls tensed at these words, but Jiho raised his hand slightly, calming them. Perhaps a demonstration would help you understand our worth, Jiho suggested. A friendly exchange of skills between cultures. The king soldiers laughed, a harsh sound in the peaceful room. You wish to fight us? Hansu asked, genuinely amused now. Our soldiers undergo genetic enhancement before birth. Our neural implants process combat situations 1,000 times faster than your brain. Our exomuscle layers give us strength. 10 humans couldn't match. Jiho smiled. Impressive tools. But tools are only as good as their user. Choose your best fighter for a simple test. Hansu gestured to a soldier on his right. Lieutenant Jin Woo will humor you. Jin Woo, try not to break the old man. The lieutenant stepped forward, towering over the seated monk. Jiho rose to his feet with that same fluid grace. The garden might be better for this, Jiho said, walking toward the open doors. The aliens followed, some still smirking. The garden was a square space with a sand area in the center, surrounded by carefully arranged rocks and a few small trees. Jiho took position in the sand and bowed to Jin Woo. The test is simple, Jiho explained. If you can put me on the ground, you win. Jin Woo didn't bother to bow back. His eyes flickered with blue light as his implants analyzed the old human before him. Without warning, he lunged forward with incredible speed. What happened next stunned everyone watching. Jiho wasn't where the alien's attack landed. With movements that seemed impossibly gentle, the old monk redirected Jin Woo's charge, stepping aside at the last moment. The alien stumbled, caught off balance by hitting nothing but air. Jin Woo turned, his face now serious. The lights on his temple flashed rapidly as his systems recalculated. This time he attacked with a precise sequence of strikes, each fast, enough to blur to normal human eyes. Jiho met each strike, not with blocking force but with slight redirections. His hands barely seemed to touch the alien, yet each powerful blow was turned away from its target. He moved like water flowing around rocks, never opposing force directly but always moving to the most efficient position. After several minutes, Jin Woo was breathing hard while Jiho hadn't broken a sweat. The alien's attacks grew more desperate, more powerful and less controlled. Finally, in frustration, Jin Woo committed fully to a powerful strike. Jiho simply wasn't there, and the alien's momentum carried him forward onto the sand. Silence fell over the garden. Jiho helped the stunned alien to his feet. Your technology is impressive, but it fights against nature rather than with it. True, strength comes from harmony with the universe, not domination of it. Hansu's face had turned dark with anger. This proves nothing. A real battle involves weapons, not games in a garden. Jiho nodded. You are welcome to return with weapons if you wish. Our tea will still be waiting. His calm confidence made the words sound like a warning rather than an invitation. The commander stared at the old monk, calculation in his eyes. This isn't over. We will return in 3 days with a formal challenge. The outcome will determine the fate of this temple. He turned sharply and left, his soldiers following quickly. After they departed, young Taewon approached Jiho. Master, what will happen now? Jiho looked toward the valley where the alien ship was lifting off. Now we prepare, not just for a fight, but to teach a lesson that might save more than just our temple. He smiled at his worried student. Go. Tell Daehyun to return from the city. We will need his knowledge of the outsiders. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, Jiho returned to his meditation spot. The challenge ahead was great, but in his 75 years he had learned that the greatest strength often came from the most unexpected places. The aliens would return, and when they did, they would learn what really made humanity worth knowing. 2 days had passed since Commander Hansu left the temple with his challenge. The morning air was crisp as Master Jiho practiced his forms in the courtyard, his movements slow and precise like a dance with invisible partners. Each motion flowed into the next 60 years of training, showing in every gesture. Master, called a familiar voice from the temple entrance. Jiho completed his sequence before turning. Walking up the stone path was Daehyun, a man in his 40s who had once been one of Jiho's most promising students. Now he wore the simple clothes of a city worker, but his eyes still held the focus of someone who had trained in the old ways. Daehyun, Jiho smiled, embracing his former student. It has been too long. I came as soon as I received your message, Daehyun said. The monks in the city told me what happened with the alien soldiers. Is it true you defeated one of them without weapons? Truth has many faces, Jiho replied. I simply showed him that force without wisdom often defeats itself. He gestured toward the tea house. Come, we have much to discuss. As they walked, Daehyun explained his current work. After the invasion, I became a translator for the occupation, forces in Seoul. My knowledge of their language has made me useful to them. I have learned much about how they think and fight. They settled on cushions in the tea house, steam rising from their cups in the cool morning air. Tell me about their enhancements, Jiho said. Dae-hyun frowned. Their technology is beyond our understanding, Master. They have implants that connect directly to their brains, making them faster and stronger than any human. Their bodies are enhanced before birth with genetic modifications. They see fighting as a problem to be solved with better technology. And what do you see as their weakness? The question surprised Dae-hyun. Weakness? Master, these beings have conquered star systems. Their smallest soldier could likely defeat our strongest fighters. Jiho sipped his tea thoughtfully. Everything has weakness, my student. Even a mountain can be worn down by water given time. He set down his cup. You have observed them closely. What have you noticed about how they move, how they think? Dae-hyun closed his eyes, remembering. They rely completely on their implants for combat decisions. I have seen them practice, and when their technology gives them information, they follow it exactly. They trust their machines more than their instincts. Interesting, Jiho murmured. And what happens if their machines are wrong? Before Dae-hyun could answer, young Tae-won rushed into the tea house. Master, forgive the interruption, but there is someone at the gate. A human woman who says she needs to speak with you urgently. Jiho and Dae-hyun followed Tae-won to the temple entrance. Standing at the gate was a woman in her 30s with tired eyes and hands stained from laboratory work. She carried a heavy bag and looked as if she had traveled through the night. Master Jiho? She asked in accented Korean. My name is Sunmi. I am a xenobiologist who has been studying the Galactic Confederation forces. I heard what happened here 2 days ago, and I believe I can help you understand your enemies. Jiho opened the gate. All knowledge is welcome here. Please join us. Back in the tea house, Sunmi spread papers and small devices across the low table. I have been researching the aliens since they arrived. Their enhancements are more complex than most people realize, but they also create unexpected vulnerabilities. She pointed to a diagram showing the alien neural implant system. These devices enhance their physical abilities dramatically, but they do something else too. They override the natural connection between mind and body that all living beings possess. Dae-hyun leaned forward. What do you mean? In humans, we might call it intuition or instinct, Sunmi explained. The feeling you get when something is wrong, even before your conscious mind understands why. Athletes often describe being in the zone, where they react without thinking. The aliens had similar natural abilities, but their technology has replaced those systems. Jiho nodded slowly. They have traded their inner wisdom for artificial intelligence. Exactly, Sunmi said. Their ancestors, according to my research, had abilities similar to what you demonstrated. Enhanced awareness, perfect balance, the ability to sense an opponent's intentions. But centuries of technological dependence have left them unable to access these natural gifts. She pulled out another device, this one showing energy readings. I recorded some data during your fight with their soldier. The energy patterns around you were unlike anything I have seen before. It was as if you were connected to forces they cannot detect with their instruments. We call it chi, Jiho said simply. The life energy that flows through all things. It cannot be measured with machines because it is not separate from the being experiencing it. Sunmi's eyes widened. That explains why their combat computers could not predict your movements. They were calculating based on physical laws, but you were using something beyond their understanding. Dae-hyun looked troubled. But Master, if their technology makes them faster and stronger, how can natural ability compete? Watch, Jiho said, standing up. He moved to the center of the room and began a simple exercise, balancing on one foot with his eyes closed. To the observers, it looked effortless, but Sunmi's devices began registering complex energy patterns. Technology can enhance the body, Jiho explained, still balanced perfectly, but it cannot enhance wisdom. A machine can calculate the fastest way to strike, but it cannot understand when not to strike at all. It can make muscles stronger, but it cannot teach the mind to see an opponent's weakness. He opened his eyes and returned to his seat. The aliens have become dependent on their enhancements. They have forgotten how to fight with their whole being. Sunmi packed up her equipment, excitement in her voice. This changes everything. If you can demonstrate that natural ability can overcome their technology, it might inspire others to resist, not with weapons but with rediscovered human potential. That is not why I fight, Jiho said quietly. But if others find hope in the example, that is good. As evening approached, a messenger arrived from the valley. Commander Hansu would return tomorrow with a formal challenge. The terms were simple. Jiho would face 3 opponents of increasing difficulty. If he won all 3 fights, the temple would remain autonomous. If he lost any fight, the temple would be destroyed as an example to other resistance movements. That night, Jiho sat in meditation under the stars while Daehyun and Sunmi discussed strategy nearby. But the old master was not thinking about strategy. He was listening to the mountain, feeling the flow of energy through the earth and air, preparing his mind for what was to come. In the distance, the lights of alien ships moved across the sky, like artificial stars. Tomorrow would bring a test not just of fighting ability, but of 2 different ways of understanding strength itself. The galaxy would learn that some things could not be conquered with technology alone. As the moon set, behind the mountains, Jiho smiled. The real lesson was just beginning. The morning sun had barely risen when the sound of alien ships filled the valley below the temple. Master Jiho stood at the temple gate, watching as a massive structure began to take shape in the flat area near the river. The aliens were building an arena using technology that assembled metal and energy fields faster than human hands could work. They want to make a show of this, Daehyun said, standing beside his old master. He had spent the night at the temple, preparing for what was to come. Let them, Jiho replied calmly. A stage does not change the performance, only who can see it. By midday, the arena was complete. It looked like a giant bowl made of gleaming metal, with seats rising up on all sides. Ships continued to arrive, bringing alien observers from across the local star systems. Word of the challenge had spread quickly through their communication networks. Sunmi approached, carrying her recording equipment. The energy readings from their construction are incredible. They have created a space that amplifies their technology while dampening other forms of energy. Including chi? Daehyun asked with concern. Jiho smiled. Chi flows through all things. It cannot be dampened, only ignored. He looked at the imposing structure. They build walls thinking they can control the river, not understanding that water always finds a way. At exactly noon, Commander Hansu arrived at the temple with an escort of 12 soldiers. His armor was more elaborate today, covered in lights and devices that hummed with power. The arena awaits, old man, Hansu announced. 3 challenges as agreed. Your primitive skills against the finest examples of galactic combat science. I am ready, Jiho said simply. The walk to the arena took only minutes, but Jiho used the time to center himself. Each step was placed with intention, each breath drawn with purpose. He could feel the eyes of hundreds of aliens on him as they entered the arena, but their attention felt like wind passing over stone. The arena floor was covered in a strange material that shifted color under their feet. Above them, alien spectators filled the seats, their voices creating a buzz of anticipation. In a special section sat high-ranking officers from multiple star systems, all eager to see their superiority confirmed. Commander Hansu walked to the center of the arena and activated a device that amplified his voice. Today, we settle the question of whether primitive biological abilities can compete with advanced technology. The human will face 3 challenges of increasing difficulty. He gestured toward a section of the arena wall, which opened to reveal the first opponent. It was not a living being but a machine, a combat drone about the size of a human but clearly built for war. Its surface was covered in sensors and weapons, and it moved with mechanical precision. This drone has been programmed with the fighting styles of 1,000 conquered worlds, Hansu announced. It learns and adapts to any opponent within seconds. Jiho bowed to the machine as he would to any opponent, though it did not bow back. The drone immediately began circling him, its sensors sweeping back and forth as it analyzed his posture and position. "Begin," Hansu commanded. The drone attacked instantly, moving faster than human eyes could follow. But Jiho was not where it expected him to be. As the machine's weapons fired energy blasts at his previous position, the old monk flowed around, its attacks like smoke. The drone recalculated and attacked again, this time anticipating Jiho's movement. But instead of dodging, Jiho stepped directly toward the machine. His hand touched its central sensor array for just a moment, a touch so gentle it barely registered on the drone's pressure sensors. The machine continued its attack sequence, but something was wrong. Its targeting system began to drift, its weapons firing at empty air while Jiho moved calmly around it. Within minutes, the drone had exhausted its energy reserves, shooting at nothing. The arena fell silent as the machine, powered down, defeated without being damaged. "Impossible," muttered one of the alien officers. "The drone's systems show no malfunction." Jiho had used a technique older than any of their machines, a precise touch that disrupted the flow of energy through the drone systems. Not enough to break it, but enough to confuse its electronic senses. Commander Hansu's face showed his anger, but he gestured for the second challenge. This time, the arena wall opened to reveal Lieutenant Jin Woo, the same soldier Jiho had faced 2 days earlier. But Jin Woo looked different now. His armor was less bulky, and some of the lights on his implants were dark. He walked toward Jiho with a different kind of focus than before. "Lieutenant," Hansu called out in their language, "remember your orders." Jinwoo nodded but said nothing. As he approached Jiho, he spoke quietly in broken Korean. "I have been thinking about our last meeting. I want to understand." "Understanding comes through experience," Jiho replied, taking his fighting stance. This time when they fought, it was different. Jinwoo had deactivated some of his enhancement systems, trying to rely more on his natural abilities. His movements were slower but more thoughtful. Instead of overwhelming force, he attempted to read Jiho's intentions. The fight lasted much longer than their first encounter. Jin Woo was learning, adapting not through computer programs but through observation and instinct. Several times he almost caught Jiho off guard, forcing the old master to use more advanced techniques. But experience told in the end. Jiho's decades of training allowed him to see openings that Jin Woo's partially enhanced senses could not detect. With a series of flowing movements, he redirected the alien's final attack and gently placed him on the arena floor. As Jin Woo lay there, not hurt, but clearly beaten, something unexpected happened. He smiled. "I felt it," he said in wonder. "For a moment I felt what you were doing, not through my implants but through something else." The crowd of alien spectators buzzed with confusion. Many had never seen one of their soldiers show such interest in an opponent's techniques. Commander Hansu stepped forward, his anger now barely controlled. "Enough games. The final challenge will end this nonsense once and for all." The arena wall opened one last time, and what emerged made even Jiho pause. It was another alien, but this one was massive, nearly 8 feet tall and covered in military enhancements that made him look more machine than living being. Every visible part of his body had been modified with technology, and his eyes glowed with artificial light. "Major Kyung-ho, our finest warrior," Hansu announced with satisfaction, "enhanced beyond the limits of biology, armed with weapons that can level buildings. This is the future of combat." The major said nothing as he approached. His footsteps left dents in the arena floor, and the air around him shimmered with energy. Fields Jiho looked up at this towering opponent and felt no fear, only sadness. Here was a being who had given up so much of himself for power that little of the original person remained. As they faced each other in the center of the arena, Jiho realized this would be more than a test of fighting skills. It would be a question of what it truly meant to be alive. The final challenge was about to begin. Major Kyung-ho stood like a mountain of metal and flesh in the center of the arena. His breathing created small clouds of steam in the cool air, and the ground vibrated slightly with each heartbeat. Master Jiho looked tiny beside him, an elderly man facing what seemed more machine than living being. This creature was once like you, Commander Hansu announced to the crowd. But he chose to embrace perfection through technology. Observe how evolution should progress. Jiho studied his opponent carefully. Kyung-ho's enhancements were so extensive that finding any trace of the original being underneath seemed impossible. Yet something in the Major's glowing eyes suggested. A flicker of awareness remained. Begin, Hansu commanded. Major Kyung-ho moved with surprising speed for his size. His first strike came down like a hammer, creating a crater in the arena floor where Jiho had been standing a moment before. The old monk flowed away from the attack, but barely. The crowd of alien spectators cheered as Kyung-ho pressed his advantage. Each punch and kick carried enough force to shatter stone, and his enhanced reflexes allowed him to track Jiho's movements with mechanical precision. For the first time in the tournament, Jiho found himself truly challenged. The Major's attacks were not just powerful but intelligently planned. His implants processed dozens of combat scenarios each second, predicting and countering every technique the old monk attempted. Finally, a real demonstration, Hansu said with satisfaction. Watch how technology triumphs over biological limitation. But in the high seats of the arena, Sunmi was watching her instruments with growing concern. The energy readings around Major Kyung-ho were unlike anything she had seen before. His enhancements were drawing power at dangerous levels, pushing his body beyond safe limits. Down in the arena, Jiho began to notice something troubling about his opponent. Despite the Major's overwhelming advantages, there was something wrong with his movements. They were precise but unnatural, like a puppet being controlled by invisible strings. During a brief pause in their battle, Jiho attempted something unexpected. Instead of attacking or defending, he simply stood still and spoke. "What is your name?" he asked in the Major's language. Kyung-ho hesitated for a fraction of a second. In that moment, Jiho saw something flicker in the alien's glowing eyes. Not the cold calculation of a machine, but the confusion of a being trying to remember something important. "I am Major Kyung-ho, designation 7741 of the Galactic Confederation," the Major replied, but his voice carried an odd uncertainty. "No," Jiho said gently. "Not your designation. Your name. The one your family gave you when you were born." The Major's massive form shuddered. For a moment, his enhancements flickered and something almost like pain crossed his features. Then the lights on his implants blazed brighter, and he resumed his attack with even greater fury. But Jiho had seen enough. This was not a warrior choosing to fight. This was a prisoner trapped inside his own enhanced body. High above them, Dae-hyun was translating the conversation for Sunmi. "Master Jiho is trying to reach the person underneath all those enhancements," he explained. Sunmi's instruments were now showing critical readings. The Major's power consumption is entering dangerous territory. His implants are overriding his natural systems to maintain combat efficiency. In the arena, the battle intensified. Major Kyung-ho's attacks became more desperate, more powerful, but also less controlled. His enhancements were pushing his body beyond its biological limits, and cracks were beginning to show. Jiho changed his strategy. Instead of avoiding the Major's attacks entirely, he began to redirect them, using the alien's own tremendous force against the arena's walls and floor. Each redirected blow sent shockwaves through Kyung-ho's enhanced frame. "Stop playing with your food and finish him," Commander Hansu called out, his patience wearing thin. But something was happening that Hansu did not expect. Other alien soldiers in the crowd were beginning to murmur among themselves. They recognized something in Major Kyung-ho's struggle that reminded them of their own experiences with enhancement procedures. Lieutenant Jin Woo, who had been watching from the arena floor, suddenly stood up. "Commander," he called out, "the Major's biosigns are approaching critical levels." "Irrelevant," Hansu snapped. "He will complete his mission." Jiho heard this exchange and realized the terrible truth. The Major was not just fighting him, he was fighting his own body's attempt to shut down before the enhancements killed him. With this understanding, Jiho's approach changed completely. Instead of treating Kyung-ho as an opponent, he began to move as if he were trying to help someone who was drowning. Using techniques passed down through generations of Shaolin masters, Jiho began to work on the Major's pressure points. Not to cause harm, but to help his body's natural systems reassert themselves against the technological overrides. Each precisely placed touch disrupted the flow of artificial energy, while encouraging the flow of natural life force. It was like performing acupuncture in the middle of a battle. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Major Kyung-ho stumbled, his enhanced systems flickering as his body's natural defenses finally had a chance to function. "What are you doing to me?" The Major gasped, his voice different now, less mechanical, more alive. "I am helping you remember who you are," Jiho replied, continuing his careful work. Commander Hansu realized what was happening and activated his own combat systems. "Enough of this interference," he snarled, leaping down into the arena. But as he landed, something unexpected happened. Several other alien soldiers, led by Lieutenant Jinwoo, moved to block his path. "Sir," Jinwoo said firmly, "the terms of the challenge were clear. No outside interference." "I will not watch this human destroy our finest warrior with his primitive tricks," Hansu raged. "He is not destroying anyone," Jinwoo replied, his eyes never leaving his commander. "He is healing him." In the center of the arena, Major Kyung-ho collapsed to his knees. But for the first time in years, his breathing was natural, his heartbeat steady. The artificial lights in his eyes dimmed, revealing the original color underneath. "My name," he whispered in wonder. "My name is Wu Jin. I remember now. I had a family once before the enhancements." The arena fell completely silent. In all their history of conquest, the aliens had never seen anything like this. A human had defeated their most enhanced warrior not through superior violence but through healing. Jiho knelt beside the Major, his hand on the alien's shoulder. "Your family's memory lives in you still. The machines cannot touch that." As the sun began to set behind the arena walls, everyone present understood that something fundamental had changed. The question was no longer about who would win the tournament, but about what victory actually meant. Commander Hansu stood alone, his authority challenged not by rebellion, but by the simple demonstration that there were some things technology could not improve upon. The final judgment would come with the dawn. Dawn broke over the arena with an unusual silence. The alien spectators who had remained through the night sat quietly in their seats, still processing what they had witnessed. Major Wu Jin, his true name restored along with his memories, sat beside Master Jiho in peaceful meditation. Commander Hansu had spent the dark hours pacing and raging, his enhanced systems running combat scenarios that all led to the same, impossible conclusion. According to the terms of the challenge, the human had won. But accepting this defeat meant accepting that everything the Galactic Confederation believed about strength and evolution was wrong. "The challenge is not over," Hansu announced as the sun cleared the horizon. His voice carried through the arena's amplification system, reaching every ear present. "The human used forbidden techniques to corrupt our warriors' enhancement systems. This invalidates the victory." Lieutenant Jinwoo stood up from where he had been sitting with other soldiers. "Commander, the terms made no mention of forbidden techniques. The human used no weapons, no technology, only his natural abilities." "Natural abilities that somehow override our most advanced systems?" Hansu's voice rose with frustration. "Impossible. There must be hidden technology involved." Sunmi, who had been monitoring the entire event with her equipment, stepped forward. "Commander, my sensors detected no artificial energy sources from the human. What he accomplished was done through biological processes that your scanners cannot measure." "Then your equipment is flawed," Hansu snapped. "Or perhaps," said a new voice, "your understanding is limited." Everyone turned to see Wu Jin rising to his feet. The former major looked different in the morning light. Though his body still carried the bulk of his enhancements, something vital had changed in his posture and expression. He no longer moved, like a machine pretending to be alive. "I felt what the human did," Wu Jin continued, his voice steady but filled with wonder. "He did not attack my systems. He reminded my body how to work with them instead of being controlled by them." Hansu stared at his former subordinate with disgust. "You have been contaminated by primitive thinking. Your enhancements will be reset to factory specifications. No, Wu Jin said simply. I refuse. The word sent a shock through the alien spectators. Refusing enhancement maintenance was unthinkable in their society. It was considered a form of mental illness. You see? Hansu addressed the crowd. This is what happens when inferior beings are allowed to spread their backwards ideas. They corrupt everything they touch. Jiho, who had remained silent during this exchange, finally spoke. Commander Hansu, if you truly believe your way is superior, then prove it. Face me yourself. The challenge hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. Hansu's eyes blazed with artificial light as his implants processed the implications. Accepting meant risking his own defeat. Refusing would appear weak before his subordinates and the gathered observers. Very well, Hansu said after a long pause. But this time we fight with real stakes. If I win, your temple is destroyed and your teachings are banned from this world. If you somehow manage to defeat me, the Galactic Confederation will reconsider its policies regarding enhanced versus natural abilities. Agreed, Jiho said without hesitation. The arena floor was cleared, leaving only the two opponents facing each other in the morning light. Hansu activated every enhancement system in his arsenal. His body grew larger as exomuscles expanded, his reactions sped up as neural processors engaged, and weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments in his armor. Jiho stood unchanged, an elderly man in simple robes holding nothing but his decades of training and understanding. Begin, announced Lieutenant Jinwoo, having assumed the role of official observer. Hansu's first attack was like lightning, faster and more powerful than anything Major Wu Jin had managed. But Jiho was ready. Instead of meeting force with force, he became like water, flowing around the commander's assault while staying perfectly centered. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Hansu fought with the accumulated military technology of 1,000 worlds, every movement calculated by computer systems that could process millions of combat scenarios per second. Jiho fought with something far older and more mysterious, the accumulated wisdom of countless generations who had learned to move in harmony with the natural forces of the universe. Each time Hansu's technology gave him an advantage, Jiho's understanding found a way to turn that advantage into weakness. When the commander used enhanced speed, Jiho was already where he needed to be. When Hansu employed overwhelming force, Jiho redirected it back upon itself. As the fight continued, something strange began to happen. Hansu's perfect systems started making errors. His targeting became less accurate, his timing began to drift, and his movements grew increasingly desperate. Sunmi, watching from the stands, suddenly understood what was occurring. His implants are overheating, she called out. The constant recalculation is pushing his systems beyond their designed limits. But it was more than just technical failure. Hansu was experiencing something his enhancements had been designed to prevent. Doubt. For the first time in decades, he was fighting an opponent his technology could not understand or predict. Jiho recognized the moment when it came. As Hansu lunged forward in a final desperate attack, the old monk simply stepped aside and placed his hand gently on the commander's shoulder. It was the same healing touch he had used on Wu Jin, but this time it met resistance. Hansu's implants fought against any attempt to restore natural balance, creating a feedback loop that caused the commander to collapse in convulsions. Help him, Jiho called to the alien medical personnel in the stands. His systems are rejecting the natural healing process. He needs immediate technical assistance. As the medical team worked to stabilize Hansu, the arena remained in stunned silence. The most enhanced warrior in the Galactic Confederation had been defeated by an elderly human who used no technology at all. Lieutenant Jinwoo approached Jiho with obvious respect. Master, what happens now? Now, Jiho said, looking around. At the gathered aliens, we learn from each other. Your people have great knowledge of the stars and the tools that can improve life. My people have knowledge of the spirit and the strength that comes from within. He gestured toward Wu Jin, who was helping the medical team with Hansu. True progress comes not from replacing what is natural, but from perfecting it. In the Weeks that followed, the temple became something unprecedented in galactic history, a place where advanced alien technology worked alongside ancient human wisdom. Scientists like Sunmi collaborated with monks to understand the energy patterns that martial artists called qi. Soldiers learned to balance their enhancements with natural ability rather than being dominated by them. Wu Jin established a training program that taught aliens how to reconnect with the natural abilities their ancestors had possessed before technological dependence set in. Many discovered that combining their enhancements with recovered instincts made them far more effective than either approach alone. Commander Han Su, after his recovery, remained changed by the experience. Though he kept his enhancements, he also began studying the philosophical texts Jiho shared with him. He never admitted he had been wrong, but his policies became noticeably more flexible. As for Jiho, he returned to his simple daily routine of meditation, practice, and teaching. But now his students included beings from across the galaxy, all seeking to understand the mystery of how an elderly monk had reminded an entire civilization that true strength came not from what they could build, but from what they had always carried within themselves. The temple bells rang each morning as they had for 15 centuries, but now their sound carried a message that reached the stars, that wisdom and power were not the same thing, and that the greatest victories were won not through conquest, but through understanding. On quiet evenings, Jiho would sit in his garden and smile as he watched human and alien students practicing together, each learning that the path to true strength was not found in choosing between technology and nature, but in finding the harmony between them. The galaxy had learned to respect Earth not for its weapons or its armies, but for something far more valuable, its wisdom. And in that respect, humanity had found its place among the stars.